From 95.7 The Spin, it's the Screaming Eagle Sports Podcast. Your rundown of everything USI Athletics. Interviews with coaches and players, game recaps, and much more. And it starts right now.
"95.7 The Spin, Screaming Eagle Sports Podcast." I'm Christian.
I'm Nate.
And today we have a very special interview, USI women's volleyball coach, Randi Raff.
It's going to be an exciting one. We're going to talk a little bit about her background here at USI as a player and a student. And then as she progresses through the years, coming into an assistant and then head coach at USI for her second year.
And certainly a lot to talk about just volleyball-wise, a different team for her this year. So a lot to get into. We're going to go over to that right now as Randi Raff is joining us. So this is the Screaming Eagle Sports Podcast. I'm Christian. This is Nate. And we just want to kind of dive into your background and then just kind of how things are going to play out this volleyball season. So to start things out, we kind of want to talk about your time at USI as a player and just kind of talk about your experiences here and things of that sort.
Sure. Yeah. I think my time at USI, I feel incredibly fortunate to have been around, during the era that I was here. We had just a really special group. We were all, the thing I remember most is just all of us were so cutthroat competitive. Like people would walk into the gym for our practices and we'd be talking trash through the net at each other. And just stuff you don't typically see in the volleyball gym, I think typically, but also like nowadays you don't really see that a whole lot. So I was just really surrounded by a lot of really great competitive players and, we just had fun and we figured it out. We were the league was, I think volleyball, as far as volleyball goes, the league was in a different place back then. The competitive level of volleyball is definitely, I think, at a higher level now. And so, we were able to get away with a lot of things technically on the volleyball side of things back then that nowadays kind of wouldn't fly. But, we were just a bunch of ex-basketball players that liked volleyball and fell in love with volleyball. And we were super competitive and we had a really awesome little stretch there, a couple of championships in those days. And I just feel really fortunate to have gotten to play during that era. I played during a time where we had, some of the all-time greats in school history here. And so, and a lot of those teammates that I had back then moved on to the coaching ranks as well. So just, I guess I would have to say surrounded by great people back then. We had some really great coaches, and we just had I was just surrounded by really solid human beings.
And after graduating USI, you actually took, if I am correct, a position as an assistant coach at Georgia Tech. Could you touch up a little bit about that?
Well, that wasn't actually my first step. I actually, So that was my most recent job before coming to USI. Yeah. I was the assistant coach and a recruiting coordinator at Georgia Tech down in Atlanta, Georgia. And, it was a really good experience there. I think working at that level, prior to coming to Tech, I was actually at Indiana University. And so that was my first kind of taste of the Power 5 level. And really my main roles at those two places were recruiting coordinator. So that's definitely my wheelhouse. That's probably one of my greatest strengths as a coach, I would say, is my, just my knowledge of recruiting the sport at a lot of different levels. But yeah, that experience was awesome. I think I learned a lot. I had my head coach was Brazilian, and so and she had played at professionally on the international professional level. I think for 5 or 6 years, and so there was a flavor to the way that she coached and taught the game that really kind of helped me kind of learn the game from different eyes, I guess. And I think not just from her, of course, my most recent stop before USI, but I think having such a diverse background of schools and coaching styles, I think has really given me the opportunity to really learn the game and just kind of over the years shape my approach to how we like to coach and train.
Yeah, and then, as you said, you're entering your second year at USI now, and just kind of want to talk about, going back to, I guess, the hiring process, your decision to want to come back to USI and take on this new challenge.
Yeah, to me, it was a no-brainer to start my career as a head coach. I think there's nothing, you could probably ask every coach that has ever coached at their alma mater. There's nothing quite like coaching at your alma mater. And, I look at it as I'm just kind of, I'm just really grateful to be here. And, I think be able to kind of help get the program headed in the right direction. I think, it's just a blessing, and it's a real honor. And so to me, I think I think my coaching style, my leadership style, I guess, more generally, I'm pretty comfortable leading from behind, I guess, in a sense. And so I was pretty comfortable being an assistant coach and being able to kind of influence behind the scenes. And so, everyone would always ask, like, oh, when do you aspire to be a head coach? And I thought, yeah, I do. I guess I want to do that one day, but it was never something that I'm like, okay, as soon as I get the experience level as an assistant, I'm moving up to head coach. It was really never, that was never really my, my ultimate goal. But now I'm realizing that just who I am and kind of my personality and leadership style, I think really lends itself to the head coaching chair. And I'm just really enjoying it. And it's just, every coaching move I've made throughout my career, I've always really tried to look at it, not on what it looks like from the outside perspective or what it looks like on my resume. I've always really tried to look at, what challenge am I going to get to see there? How can I grow myself into a better coach with this next step? Sometimes I did a good job of choosing. Sometimes, maybe that choice was, something that maybe I should have held off and waited or this or that or the other. But either way, I always try to really look at any next coaching move as what can I learn from this next step and this next level.
You're coming into your second year of coaching here at USI. Last season, before all of this COVID stuff started happening, you finished your season at 15-15 overall. How are you looking to improve onto that this year?
How are we looking to improve? I think, we try really hard to get our players to kind of work towards like championship behaviors that will eventually lead into winning. So, we try not to be overly focused on outcome and more focused on, what are the behaviors that I need to do to make myself into the best individual player I can and the best teammate that I can. And so we do a lot that goes into that, obviously. But yeah, I think as a coach, in the back of our minds, we always want to, we always want that win column to be a little bit larger than it was last year, and just that slowly progressing towards just building the program back into what I know it can be, and a championship level program. So we work really hard to try and make it not overly focused on results, more focused on behaviors and habits and practices and all those sorts of things. But I guess all that to say, we work really hard at recruiting because recruiting is it's very cliche to say, but it's the lifeblood of your program, and it will it can make a difference in a hurry when it comes to looking as an outsider looking in at wins and losses.
Something you mentioned a little bit earlier was back whenever you played volleyball here, it felt like it was kind of a different style of volleyball than it is now, and things are a lot different. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Sure. Yeah. The game in general, and I think you'd probably hear this at a lot of different levels if you talk to volleyball coaches, but the game in general has gotten a lot faster. And what I mean by that is in a couple different ways. One is, setters are pushing the ball out to the pin a lot faster. So our outside hitters, our pin hitters, we call them, they're hitting balls at a tempo that's much faster than it used to be. Used to be you'd kind of put up a nice high slow ball to the outside and you just kind of manhandle it through the block, or that sort of thing. the games become much faster, which changes things a lot on the defensive side of it. And then the other way it's become faster, of course, is, I hate to even say this out loud, but I actually played during the side out scoring era a little bit. So when the game went from side out scoring to rally scoring, which for, if you guys are unfamiliar, side out scoring is when your team has to be serving the ball in order for you to score a point on the scoreboard, versus how it is now, which is anytime someone wins a point goes up on the scoreboard, or wins a rally, a point goes up on the scoreboard. So that's made the game a lot faster, a lot more exciting. They, even still in the last, I think 2 years was the last rules change, but they've shortened the intermission. I think the longest intermission we have now is, I think, 5 minutes. So it's just boom, boom, boom. And they're trying to get the game to be more exciting, more fan friendly. So yeah, those are some of the slight differences for sure.
And COVID has really affected you and your team for this year. Could you touch up a little bit on how COVID has affected you and your team?
Yeah, so, I think as I kind of zoom out and look at the big picture with our team and how we've handled it, I think the biggest impact that it had was when we went home for spring break last year and then didn't wind up coming back. Or you guys did come back, but you came back to pick up your stuff and go right back home. So I think that was probably the most abnormal, the biggest impact thing that happened to our team was not being able to have our spring season last year. And, one of the things that we did do, and we made the shift as coaches right away, because I thought, oh my gosh, I'll share a little bit about what our team did. We had a team meeting right before spring break where I said, okay, we need to get serious about what our goals are for next year, because I don't think we should be setting goals in August before our season starts. We need to be setting goals before our spring season so we can start working towards those goals. And so we had actually sat down right before COVID as a team, and we set some goals for our team. And we had a really great talk about standards and championship standards, and how are we going to get to these goals, and what behaviors do we need to be able to have this all add up to what we want in the end. And so we had this really great team meeting. And then when we went home for spring break and COVID hit, I was like, oh my gosh, I've just set all these lofty goals with this team, and now we don't have the spring to work towards those goals. So immediately Brian, my assistant coach, and I shifted into okay, what can we do? And so we took probably 2 weeks there to plan out a 5-week curriculum, basically, where we did a lot of film breakdown. We were looking at ourselves twice a week. And then the players had one match a week that they had to watch on their own, and we would discuss that on Friday. So the one match, it was all different levels. We did some high level Division II championship matches that they had to watch. We did some professional league matches. I think there was a Japanese match that we had them watch, and then we had them watch some Division I national finals. So we had them watching all kinds of volleyball, and then we discussed it as a team on Fridays. So the other pieces that we added into that 5-week curriculum during the quarantine was we did a book club. We actually got on Zoom and read the book together. So it wasn't just like, oh, go read chapters 2 and 3 and then come back and tell me what you learned. We actually sat on Zoom and read it together. And then another thing that we introduced a little bit with our team was we did some visualization. So I had them put together a playlist that just whatever music hyped them up and got them just really, something they might play during a warm up or during the pregame in the locker room. And I had them put together their playlists, and no matter where we were, right, we were all in a different place at the same time every day. We would go for a walk outside with our playlists on, and we'd be visualizing ourselves warming up, attacking a ball, and going through some things like that. And every Zoom meeting we had, I made a match, like their practice uniform. So we just did some little things like that to really connect us as much as we possibly could. And I think with the anxiety of the time, I know it sounds like a lot as I talk through it, but with the anxiety of the time and just how difficult that was for everyone, all of us going through it, it was something that could bring us together and something that we could kind of control, if that makes sense. So so for me, that was the biggest impact, was not having our spring. And then, I mean, the next biggest thing obviously is that we don't have any competition this fall. And so it's almost like we got that time in the spring that we would have been training, and we're getting it now in the fall. And so for the calendar year 2021, then we'll be getting two seasons to get to play. So yeah, but the players are handling it well. Our theme for the fall is resilience. So we're just hammering that home. We got to just roll with it.
Absolutely. And you talk about your season has, of course, been moved into the spring semester, the beginning of 2021. Just kind of talk about how you guys are preparing right now as far as practicing and things like that.
Yeah, so we're getting into, we're putting in some systems stuff. We're doing a lot of fine tuning on our defense. We're being very defensive minded. We're hitting blocking pretty hard. We're hitting serving pretty hard. It's been really, really fun. And we're also, we're also trying to infuse a little bit of competition within our team so that those muscles are being exercised. There's a pressure muscle that isn't exercised when there's no, matches at the end of the week that we have to prepare for. So we're doing that by creating some, it's called a competitive cauldron. It comes from Anson Dorrance from UNC Soccer, I think, is the first person that kind of came up with the concept, and it's very popular within our sport. But we're doing a competitive cauldron this fall, and so the kids compete for points, and there's 2-week phases that we compete in, and at the end of each 2-week phase, we'll have a compete champion. And so the kid that's won the most rallies, has basically won the most, will win. We have a little traveling trophy that goes to their locker or whatever. So those are some of the things. I think, our biggest thing though is getting into some systems training that we wouldn't maybe otherwise have been able to progress so far in if we were just worried about winning matches.
And not having a fall season, do you think that will affect your team in any way?
I actually think there's a competitive advantage for us, particularly this roster. And I say that because, because we're relatively young. And so we have a lot of young players. And so having this fall is actually, has actually, to me, in my mind, it works in our favor a little bit. The hugest bummer of all, of course, is just that we don't get an NCAA championship. So we don't get a crack to go to NCAA tournament this first, time around. But maybe it's just me being an overly optimistic coach, but I actually think this plays to our hand pretty nicely. So I'm excited to compete in the spring.
Earlier you mentioned your assistant coach, Brian Stewart. Just kind of talk about your relationship with him and how you guys work together.
Yeah, Brian, I mean, man, it's been so fun to just continue growing with Brian and in our relationship together. He and I balance each other really well, I think. And you guys probably notice this as you look at our bios, but Brian comes from, he coached in college, he coached at an NAI school before he came here, but a good portion of what he was doing before he came here was not just at that college, he was also coaching at the club level. And at the club levels, he trained a lot of teams. He's got a lot of in-game coaching experience, and he's got a lot of experience training, skill training, and just kind of, all the little, granular things when it comes to kind of training a team as a whole, that have, not been something that I've been totally focused on as I've been a recruiting coordinator. So just our backgrounds fit together really nicely. Brian's, he's a really great dude. He's a hard worker. His personality is great for me. I tend to be kind of fiery, which probably isn't coming through with the Zoom and the mask and everything, but I tend to be pretty fiery. And I think he's very even keeled, and he does a great job of just kind of helping me to see a different perspective. And our relationship, as all relationships, it just continues to grow, and we keep kind of finding ways to kind of fill in the gaps with each other. And I think as long as we're always focused on what's important, which is growing our players into the best players they can possibly be and creating the best possible team we can, we get along great. And I really enjoy having Brian around. He's such an asset to our program.
You mentioned earlier that you have a pretty young core, but you do have a couple seniors on the team. Could you highlight your seniors and kind of describe a little bit about them, how they play?
Yeah, for sure. So we've actually got 3 seniors. We have 4 seniors on the roster, but one's a transfer. So we're just kind of getting to know her. She's just gotten in the mix starting in August. But yeah, our seniors, so starting with Lauren English, she's a middle. She, I believe, she came for a 2-year college. And so, when I came in, that was like her first year here. But Lauren does a really good job. She's just kind of one of those workhorse type people. She shows up, she does her job, she gets it done. And physically, she's a strong kid, and you definitely don't want to hit right into her block whenever she's in front of you. She does a really good job of she's strong and she controls that ball at the top of her block. She's not a huge offensive threat, but I just think, she just really gets in there and does her job. And Lauren's been just such an awesome kid to have around. Callie is she's our DS libero. That's a senior. Callie's game has grown tremendously. And I think, she has just become, this fall has started to become just this real steady presence on the court. And she is, when I tell you that kid's worked hard, she's worked on every aspect of her game. She's worked on her mental game. She's worked on her skill breakdown. She's worked on her ability to stay in the system that we're playing. She's a very dedicated, committed kid that we are just, again, we're just super fortunate to have her. Casey Sapicki, she's our senior setter. Casey came in this fall, and I don't think I've ever seen a kid come in off of a break, like a summer break, any kind of time off, as fit and ready to go as she came in this fall. I think it's been super exciting because she has taken everything and run with it. Casey's also a captain, and she was a captain last year as a junior. Casey was kind of, so last year we had a junior captain, Casey, and then we had a senior captain as well. And, Casey was kind of in the role of, let's grow you into a really good captain, or a really great captain. And so she had a lot of things to learn, and she just, she absolutely bought into everything, and we're starting to kind of see dividends, now, in her leadership on and off the court, that we started to plant seeds with last year when she was the junior captain. And so now she's the senior captain. She came in ready to go. She's super fit. She's flying. She's jumping so well. The kids, I don't know, she's 5'9" maybe. And she blocks as good as anybody in our gym. She plays defense like a libero. I think the year before I got here, she had as the setter, right? That's supposed to take the second ball. So she had the most digs on the team the year before I got here. And I'm like, wow, okay, we're going to need the setter to take the second ball. But, that just speaks to me. It just speaks to, her defensive ability and her range with being able to dig the ball. And she just puts up a quality ball. It's not just a flailing touch that maybe flies off the court. It's a really good, settable ball. So I can't say enough good about Casey. She's she has really worked hard to become the leader she is, on and off the court. And she came in fit, ready to go. She's setting really well. Brian trains our setters up a lot, and just training vision, training, tactics, training, decision making, things like that. And she's just taken all of it and she's run with it. So this group of seniors is just, it's going to be really sad to see them go. But yeah, they're a good group.
One thing you mentioned earlier was that you weren't too necessarily worried about the results from last season. You guys did finish 15-15, 9-3 at home, obviously pretty impressive, but 1-9 on the road. What do you think you can do to try to correct that percentage there?
Yeah, I think again, we were relatively, we had a lot of older kids on the court, but we had some young kids in key positions. So one that comes to mind is, we had a freshman outside, and if you know, and she was playing 6 rotations, so that's a lot of pressure on a freshman to play 6 rotations in the outside, because what happens is when you're out of system or when you don't have a good pass, that ball inevitably gets put up to the outside hitter, and it's kind of on her shoulders to take care of that ball or score that point or whatever. So I think we while on paper we looked like we were a veteran. Sorry.
No
Basketball
problem.
practice going on. While on paper we looked like a veteran team a little bit last fall, we actually had a lot of players who were new to starting positions, even though they were returners. So I think that played a little bit of a role. I think that, culturally, I think when you're young, it's hard to play on the road. And so, now with that freshman class having one more year under their belt, knowing what it actually feels like I just slept in a hotel bed. Now I got to get up and I got to get it rolling. I got to do whatever it takes to get myself going. They're going to understand that a little bit more. So I attributed to that a little bit, and I just attributed also to growing pains. Anytime you come in and you're trying to change the culture of a program, I think any adversity that you see is going to be extra challenging for a team that's going through a culture change, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
And as you said, there is going to be a season in the spring, and traveling could come up as an issue. What do you think are going to be the traveling guidelines and protocols as the season starts?
I don't know exactly. I think one of the things I know we'll do is, hotel rooms. They're going to be sure and go 2 to a room, when sometimes we might put 3 in a room or something like that. So, I think we'll try to, as much as we can, with their rooming list, who they're in their hotel rooms with, we might try and pair them up with the people they live with. That way they're not getting outside their quote unquote little bubble. We will have testing protocol in place. There's some NCAA protocol that we have to kind of follow when we're in season. So we'll all have all that in place, and do all the things we know to do, right? Wash our hands, sanitize, avoid staying in confined spaces. We'll probably not dine at a restaurant. Maybe, I don't know, who knows the next time we'll dine at a restaurant together, but things like that. Just all the things we know to do is what we'll be doing. And then of course there'll probably be additional testing and different protocol for the department and the NCAA.
All right, Coach. I don't have anything else.
No, I don't either.
We really appreciate your time, and want to thank you and wish you luck in the upcoming season.
Sure thing. Hope to see you guys out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. That was the Screaming Eagle Sports Podcast with Randi Raff. Really want to thank her once again for taking the time to sit down with us, and obviously wish them luck in their upcoming season. A lot happened in that episode. It's certainly great to talk about.
Absolutely. And you learned a little bit about volleyball. I never knew what a block was. A volleyball block, you never knew.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I thought it was really interesting how she talked about the difference from like back when she played here at USI to how it is now as far as the scoring, and just how a lot can change in a very short amount of time.
I never knew they changed those rules at all.
Certainly want to thank Randi Raff once again. And with that, that's going to sign off the Screaming Eagles Sports Podcast. I'm Christian.
I'm Nick.
And this has been the Screaming Eagles Sports Podcast.